Weighing in on this, I am joined by Mrs. Charity Ahimsiwe, who is the Executive Director of the Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy in Uganda, CEDU. You're welcome to NTV tonight.
Thank you very much, Rita.
Charity, we'll start with what your comments are on the statement released by the National Unity Platform from your observations thus far.
The National Unity Platform today did mention to us, Rita, that they are finding difficulty accessing radio and TV platforms. They are charged a lot of money and they are finding it difficult to conduct digital campaigns. And so they said it's going to be very difficult for them to sell their ideas, and yet we know that in democracy it is a selling of your ideas. It is a marketplace for ideas to be sold, that the voter will choose who has the best ideas and then vote for them. So the National Unity Platform today has been painting a picture that except they are given more room to also campaign on the media, then they have no space to campaign. But what do we make of the statement that they put out today? I think that the National Unity Platform knew from the start that this election was going to be a complicated election. From the time they said COVID-19 is with us and we're going to conduct elections on media platforms, then that therein became the problem. CEDU immediately said there was going to be a problem because the radio stations that we have in Uganda are largely owned by individuals. There are 300 of them, but most of them are owned by individuals. The ones that are owned by the state through UBC are about 10 radio stations. The TV stations are the same, they're about 5 for UBC. And the law only speaks of equal access to the media through the Presidential Elections Act. All the other pieces of legislation are silent on access to media. So we raised the issue with the Electoral Commission when we met them on July 3rd, 2020. And the Electoral Commission promised that they were going to meet the National Broadcasters Association. They would come up with guidelines that would allow for all political players to access media equally. Well, those guidelines were crafted.
Where are they now?
And we can take the discussion from there, that once those guidelines were crafted, the lawyers shot them down. And the lawyers shot them down based on the Constitution, Article 29. It gives you freedom to expression and opinion, that you, the radio station owner, can choose who opines on your radio station and what are they opining about and what expression do they have. Do they want to put out there? So the determining factor for who comes on your radio station remains you, the owner of the radio or the TV station. And so the guidelines could not hold. They could no longer provide that level playing field for all political players.
With that said, now, what kind of virtual campaign are we looking at? Is it going to be one that's free and fair? And of course, whether we have a free and fair virtual campaign does in one way or another lead to a free and fair election eventually. So what do you think, in your opinion, at
now,
this point in time?
The campaigns being on media platforms is already limiting in a sense, because the media platforms, like we've said, are few. How many voters do we have? We said there were 17.6 million voters. How many can access those media platforms? There are 1.2 million Ugandans who can access those media platforms. How many can access internet on a daily basis? 7%. And then there are stringent laws, the Computer Misuse Act, the UCCA Act. The UCCA Act gives UCC authority to determine what the radio stations can do and what they air. And so when we saw what we have seen on social media, radio stations in Lango and different places saying, you see, UCC has written to us and said, be careful about who you host on the radio station. That already says the campaign is limiting in a nature. So the Electoral Commission needs to come out strongly at this point to look like the proper arbiter in this election, except they come out and clearly speak to UCC, National Broadcasters Association, the radio station owners, and come to an amicable understanding. We're going to continue to see this happening. And at the end of the election, there will be a lot of frustration, there will be a lot of anger. Already the stakes are high. If we have people not trusting the process because we have shifted the campaigns to online spaces or to media platforms, then the Electoral Commission, which is the arbiter, should take firm stance
Okay,
against radio stations.
Lastly, a recommendation to the politicians who are taking part in this. Are there any other ways they can go around whatever is happening? Is there a part they can look at in terms of the law? What can they do to ensure that perhaps they might have a fair virtual campaign and free and fair elections come 2021?
Okay. Now, the political actors all knew from the start that we have a COVID election. And it's the first one we're trying out, that we must conduct the election campaigns using media platforms. What they need to do now is to critically scrutinize those laws, because the Lord Justice, who is seated in the Electoral Commission, is going to ensure he is following the law to the letter. And these laws are stringent. They are stringent to the actors. He is following the law, and he will tell you the law says UCC can make sure that certain people don't show up on a show. UCC Act gives them that authority. And so if he's going to use the UCC Act, then you're doomed. If he's going to use the Computer Misuse Act, then it's just a few people who can be able to post certain things on social media. But you realize that in elections, criticizing of different players is important, because I must be able to critique what you've done for me to give you the alternative, which then the voter decides on. But the Computer Misuse Act does not allow for you to criticize.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Charity, for joining us on NTV Tonight this evening. I hope that each and every stakeholder has been able to listen to this. Joining us from the Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy in Uganda is the Executive Director, Mrs. Charity Ahimbisibwe. Now, we also take a look at what your thoughts are by asking you an opinion poll this evening.